I always go to another YouTube page and disable it.
Well, we will see.
Yep.
I definitely disabled the sound on the other computer, so we're live.
Hey, we're live. Okay, hang on a second. I got to solve a problem. No, I don't have a clue how you got a cow in the bathroom, but I've looked at it and there's no way that thing is coming out without a chainsaw. Yeah, we're either going to have to take the wall out or the cow out. Yeah, hey, I got to go. I got to get back to work here. It had to be a cow, right? Because nobody would have believed an elephant.
Well, that's true. Or a giraffe.
Hey, Scott, happy Friday.
Happy Pie Day. Dave. Happy Friday. Pie Day. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Q&A on Friday. I'm Scott Jernigan, editor-in-chief for
Dave Rush. Sorry. Trying a different approach this week. There we go. Hey, quickie for everybody. Let's let them in on the grand secret right now. I have a monstrous storm that is now actually hitting the house. I've been watching it move toward the house for the last 15 minutes. We power outed about 5 minutes ago here. If we power out, Scott's able to stay on and I was able to reboot quickly. So we'll see what happens.
Very clear skies down here. I'm about, 20 miles south of Dave.
Yeah. So Michael was getting rain when he and I first kicked up all the background stuff. So it's all over the place. Big cold front moved through here. And it's unusual in Houston to call it a cold front, but it's a pretty cold front.
Yeah, it's still in the 90s here. So 20 miles away, huge difference in temperature. But
for
yeah.
those who don't know, my kid's about 400 miles north in Lubbock at Texas Tech. We're wearing a Texas Tech shirt today. He told me 43 today and they're going to get snow on Tuesday.
What's that?
Yeah, I know. Hey, Scott, tell them why we're here.
Hey, guys. We are here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to hang out. Because of the lockdown, and most of us are still in kind of quarantine or on quarantine-ish, and many classrooms are shut down, this gives you an opportunity to come together, share learning, ask us questions. Dave Rush, my guy here, and I have been in tech and teaching tech for decades, literally. So we have a pretty good knowledge of a whole bunch of different subjects. So we specialize in IT Fundamentals Plus, A Plus, Network Plus, Security Plus, but we can go well beyond there. So you can literally ask us anything. Keep the religion and politics out.
And cool.
Go vote. That's my only political statement today.
That's right. It's a good one.
So, yeah.
And as you all know, whenever you join us here, we've always got something nice to donate to the cause. And this week's donation is somewhere over here. It's moved. Stand by. I just had it.
Okay. Put it in the chat as well.
Yeah. Oh, man. There's so many windows that you have to keep open to do this kind of thing.
Technical difficulties, standing by.
Yeah.
But you can, oh, there we go.
That was not what I wanted to do. I just shared my whole desktop. All the grand secrets. Okay, this is open. So then you click this, and then you click this. And there it is. Who knew? Okay. So every week that we do these, we have some kind of special for you. This week's special is very similar to last week's special. In fact, you'll probably recognize it. So 50% off all A Plus and Net Plus Total Tester and Total Tester / Sims bundles, and or the Sec Plus Total Tester. It's a complicated looking code for checkout, right? 101920, but if you look at it as 10/19/20, October 19th, 20, if you're here in the US, then it will make sense. That was Monday's date. It's good through Sunday, 2 days from now. And as Mike says, these are already an incredible deal. And we've got the best testing products out there. We've got the best Sims products out there. It's just unbelievable. So if you're studying for any of these tests, this is the tool that not only exposes you to the kind of stuff that you're going to see on the exam, but our questions are so good because we all have so much experience taking these tests on a regular basis. We get a feel for what they're doing. And so we certainly can't recreate those questions, but man, we can get close. And so you'll take a test and say, wow, I know the answer to this. I wonder why. It seems so familiar.
So the live chat, the people are talking about electrocution, I guess dealing with the cow in the bathtub with a toaster, you know.
Well, I throw these things out to spur competition. I decided not to put up a concert shirt today. I was in the top of the drawer and said, oh man, Star Wars, let's do something on that line for a while. So
that was one of my first albums I ever bought.
The Star Wars album?
Yep.
Are you serious? The soundtrack?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
When I was 16. So. What do you do?
I think the first album LP that I ever bought was a Steve Martin concert.
Huh. Okay.
Wild and crazy guy. He was my guy then.
Mine was.
Everybody's working on Elbow's Problem.
Yep.
Nice to see you, Krampus. Let's do the greetings for everybody who's turned up here.
Right. Yeah. Should we just run through them?
Yeah. Get my little Miss Sally mirror. I see Tullowit and Connor Wellman. Hey, Connor, nice to see you, buddy.
Simon Edling.
Silent, please.
Brendan S.
Brendan's here. Who'd have thought it? Hi, Simon. At 150, this is everybody who shows up before. If you show up beforehand, I've usually got all my stuff set up. Scott's got his stuff set up. If you post something, you're liable to get a response. Oh, it's raining like a swimming pool.
Raining like a.
Like.
I'll just go with it. So Andre's here.
Andre is here.
From the Netherlands.
Andre Tullowit, me, and possibly you. And of course, Jose, the mavens of the Discord server.
Right.
Guys, stop into the Discord server. I see membership growing every day. It gets more and more fun the more people we get involved. And many thanks to Jose for setting that up. That's been terrific.
Absolutely.
Patricia steps in with her stock greeting. Greetings, nerd, back at you. And my thing just did the super auto scroll.
Right. Ulysses.
Oh, wow. Is that new? Or do I just have a short memory?
Okay.
I don't recall ever seeing it.
I'm going to say, I'm going to roll it and say it's Spanish. So Ferrer.
Okay.
What do you think?
Ulises. I'm still catching up here. So Patricia asked Tullowit if he's a vegan. You can tell when someone's a vegan, Patricia. That's usually the first thing that they will say. Comes before, hi, my name is. I'm a vegan. Oh, and my name is Tullowit. No, Tullowit can't be a vegan. He's a chef. He's a classically trained chef. He knows what food tastes like and what it should taste like.
Wait a minute.
I
was almost vegan today. Except
I love the plug-in idea. Somebody. Patricia Gray, of course, a carnitarian. I never heard of that described. I just always called it carnivore or meat eater, but Tullowit can always be counted on for making up a new word.
Nice.
Is that a Han Solo joke, Tullowit? I keep going back and forth because my YouTube chat keeps sliding up and down.
Right.
I'm at 206 right now. First album was Star Wars Holiday Special album. That's been all over the news this week. Somebody did their tell-all this week, and much was discussed about how much Lucas hated the holiday special that he did.
Really?
I remember seeing it, and it deserves derision, to be sure. It was like Christmas on Chewbacca's planet or something horrible like that.
I don't think I ever saw it.
And no reason to. It's right up there with a couple of their other favorite movies.
Although, if you haven't seen it, recently. Check out Leonard Nimoy singing Bilbo Baggins.
I have not seen that one. I've seen him do some songs, but never Bilbo. Okay.
Yeah.
That's my after AMA project.
You just, it's like one of those things where he went there. I don't know.
You know what? If you haven't seen him do Rocket Man, that's hilarious. He just kind of leans on a stool, smokes a cigarette, and I'm a rocket man. Burning out the fuse.
Nice. Was excellent.
Yeah. Let's see. Passing 208. Some greetings to one another. Auto slide. You jerk of us. Hello, Andre. No, come on. You don't get the raining like a swimming pool. Ever been at the bottom of a swimming pool full of water? It's raining like that. I thought that was a gimme. Andre, if you have a large bucket, you have to do one of those challenges. Fill it with ice and do the ice bucket challenge or something that puts people in the hospital. If we can combine that and turn that into the bleach challenge or the vinegar challenge. It's my favorite viral video of last year. The woman drinking the cup full of vinegar. And she starts out by sniffing and announcing how stupid this is, but I'm going to do it. Others have done it. And then she does it. And her commentary is so brilliant, and nothing I can repeat here.
There you go.
I was gonna say, Andre, not only nothing wrong with vegans, more meat for you. They taste better.
Now we get a cannibal joke. I love it.
Yeah, I'm upside down. What's the super vegan? When you were like a 13th level vegan, you don't eat anything that has carbon in it.
That's where I'm at, a breatharian.
Yeah.
I just breathe and get all of my nutrients.
All right, no politics. Well, I guess Mark Hamill is okay. Yeah, I don't want to hear Mark Hamill's opinions on presidential debates. I don't have to see them to know what his opinions are. Yeah, there's Ulysses Farrar. Okay, yeah, that's definitely of a Hispanic or Spanish nature.
Yep.
I love Jose Farrar. Is that a non sequitur?
That was a
non sequitur. Really do.
Yeah. Especially because you could have gone like Jose Feliciano.
That would have been
a complete non sequitur.
Then I'd stand up and flamingo dance. I never know if you're supposed to pronounce it with a C or a G.
Jose?
Yeah. And his friend, Jose B. I didn't do that.
You didn't do that.
All right, we are okay. I'm caught up here, so I'm going to do some notes here. Not going to do the ice bunk challenge. Busy enough. I forgot. That's right. You're in healthcare, except you're temporarily out of healthcare. Dagobah reference. Nice.
Nice, right?
Nice. Fun facts. Star Wars Holiday Special is the first official appearance of Boba Fett. He used his gun to smack a bubblegum pink Brachiosaurus. Okay, I don't recall that, but wow. I don't think I've seen that thing since I was 20. So
a couple years ago.
Cool. Let me go look at some notes and talk about some stuff for today. Today is a fun day. First of all, we're going to do something really fun, really practical, useful, and really speedy. Now, you know me, I'm not going to let it be that speedy, but I'm going to run you through the speedy parts today so that in 5 minutes, you're done. If you don't want to watch the rest of the show, you will have a working power on, power off switch. But there's two pieces that we got to add. There's some differences with the Pi 4 that I got to mention. And then I'm going to take the super speedy thing that we did and then dissect it and show you what happened. And the whole thing is still pretty doggone quick. I did it in front of a mirror last night just to make sure, which I haven't done since my first, presentation job. So where we're going today, we're going to delve back into hardware. We're going to connect a button to the GPIO header that will do power up and safe shutdown when the button is pressed. So you can power it down with a button press. You can power it up with a button press. You don't have to hold it up here like a camera flash from the 1930s. It can be on the case, but cool stuff. We're going to use, if you want to start looking it up, in fact, here, I'll tell you what, I'll throw this up on the thing. A how-to from a tutorial from a place called howchoo.com, HOWCHOO. All right. So I'm going to leave that up there for a second while I yammer for just a moment. We do I've been doing something the last couple of weeks, interesting news, tricks, and techniques of the week. All right. If you didn't get that, play it back in the archive. I'm done there. So here's what I got for this week, just kind of some neat things that have happened. As you may or may not know, the core of Linux was developed pretty much by one person, a gentleman named Linus Torvalds, or Torvalds. And he still is the driving force behind the core of Linux. He makes changes to the core. Everybody else who has used his template to make different distros, the Debian distros and the Red Hat distros and all the other Linux distros, Raspberry Pi OS, they use his core and then they add and change things. So he updates it once or twice a year. The new update came out about a week ago or so. So the new core Linux kernel is 5.9. It's going to be a little while, a couple of weeks, maybe a couple months before Raspberry Pi puts that. There's no real big earth-shaking changes to it, so you don't have to worry about updating to it. Some folks like to slit their own throat on the bleeding edge of technology, and so when it gets incorporated into Raspberry Pi OS, fine, it will, and you can do that. It's a very easy update when it comes out. I'll talk you through that when that happens. So what's our impact? The impact is it doesn't hurt to stay where you are. It won't hurt to upgrade it when it comes out, and it probably won't help many people very much until it's had 6 to 12 months of life cycle where people start taking advantage of the fixes or of the new features. There weren't many new features. There was a few bug fixes. However, here is something that may impact a lot of folks, especially if you've been following along with Mike's server presentation in the last week and a half. And that is VirtualBox got updated yesterday to deal with the new Linux kernel. You don't have to upgrade VirtualBox, but every time you launch VirtualBox, it calls home and checks, and it's going to give you that message that says, hey, there's a new VirtualBox. Do you want to install it? Won't hurt you to do that. I did that on mine 2 days ago, and I've run all kinds of Linuxes on it and all kinds of Windows on it, and everything is working just fine. So call that good to know info.
Right. And Crumpus just posted, I updated today randomly.
Yeah.
So yeah, again,
yep,
not a problem.
What's interesting is I haven't seen any notices from the other two big VM makers, VMware or Microsoft with Hyper-V. So maybe a little bit before those come out. And again, it's not going to hurt us.
Right. Cool.
Everybody asks about clusters. Are we going to do clusters? Yes, we certainly are. But I'm getting a lot more requests about that in the last few weeks. So I spent a little time in the evenings this week going out and doing some research for useful clusters. We can make a cluster. We can make a Beowulf cluster in short order without having any idea what we're doing. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, a cluster is made, and now we can head scratch at it. So I spent a little bit of time today or this week looking for useful installations of Pi clusters. And the first one that I ran across blew me away, a Blender renderer. So Blender runs fine on a Pi. It's web-based, it's whatever its native language is, Java or Python or whatever it is. So I ran across this thing where a guy took 4 Pis and he was running Blender on a PC, but it doesn't matter. You could run native Blender on a Pi, but he just set up these 4 Pis as render slaves. That's the term for them. It's a politically incorrect term, but there it is. So, and then he ran some benchmarks. One was just rendering the thing solo on the computer that it was using to do blenders, and then with 1 Pi and 2 Pis and 3 Pis and 4 Pis. And in short, it comes out that he's got a some kind of moderate power 4-core CPU on the computer he's using, and it takes X amount of time to render a given job. So then he tried those on the pies. 2 pies, about the same time. As you add more and more pies to the render process, it's almost a linear progression on dropping time. So 4 pies can render a job in half the time as that one 4-core CPU. And what was really cool, I thought about this, is rendering is a CPU intensive monster of a job. So if you've got your computer dedicated to rendering, you're not doing anything else with it. You're not going to play Skyrim with Scott, who may or may not suddenly gotten back into Skyrim. And I checked out then all of the other really big render type programs, panorama stitchers that are part of Adobe, things like that. Those work great in clusters. There's plenty of other cluster opportunities out there, but I just wanted to share that one with you because I thought that thing was really cool. Oh, and there was another one that's really cool. Because of today's project, I've been kind of exploring some things that we could fork from this. I said that word very carefully.
I heard that.
To. And one of the it has led me down a Python path. Now, I'm not a coder. I don't write Python yet. I'm going to have to from what I learned this week. But there is a product out there that allows you to process Python script on clustered computers, and it uses the standard multi-mainframe supercomputer messaging API to do this. So you got a master machine that says we need to process some Python code, and it recognizes its slave machines, and it uses this MPI, message passing interface, that says, hey, slave number 1, here's some code for you. Process it and let me know when you're done with it, and I'll take it back. And there's no limit to how many machines you can get processing. Now, you're gonna have to need a lot of Python code that needs to be processed to make that a really useful thing. But again, just something I thought was super cool. And the last thing in tricks and trips and news that I want you to throw out is I want to give you a name. The name is Jeff Geerling, Geerling. I've been sort of bouncing into him as far as articles and presentations and things like that he does over the years. But again, my work this week has taken me down a bunch of roads that he has already paved. Man, just look up the name and look up some of his Pi work and Pi projects. You may find something very interesting. All right, I didn't have any questions that I copied and saved from last week, so I don't have any old questions to answer. So that means in Uncle Dave's notes, let's go back to the chat feed and see what's going on. We're only 23 minutes in.
So we started the entire chat feed with a Elbows rapid fire questions just before we actually came online. And a lot of people answered, but figured this would be a good time to sort of think through the process of how you troubleshoot a dead PC.
Love that idea.
Yeah, so everything was plugged in theory, and turn the power on, you get lights, you get fans, you get action, things are happening, but it's a dead PC. So the trick here is to ask the question, what can cause these symptoms, right? What can it be? So immediately people are like, it's got to be a power connector that's not plugged in, either the P4 or an auxiliary power supply on the motherboard, or the power connected to the PCI Express video card could also have that same kind of effect. If you had a CPU fan disconnected, that can, on some motherboards, can cause that effect. Because it just says, no, I'm sorry, I'll overheat immediately, and so I'm just not going to power up. So any of these kind of things can cause that problem. But that's not all, right? And that's the key to troubleshooting, is you have to keep imagining all of the different pieces and how they interconnect and what can cause a dead PC. And then do what we all love to do, and that is strip it down. start disconnecting things until you get all the way down to the basic core components, and then gradually put them back together to be able to figure out what is causing the problem. So it's like the greatest moment in tech. As a geek, it's like I pushed the power button and nothing happened.
Yeah. And then of course, that one thing that we all have to be careful of, you've got it narrowed down to 2 things or maybe 3 things, and you've been slugging at it for hours. And so you whip out the 3 things that might be suspect and you replace them all, and it works. All right, which one's dead now?
So, one at a time, man.
Yeah, use patience or be willing, because you're going to have to troubleshoot that stuff sooner or later.
Yep.
All right, I'm at 213. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So at 213.
Yeah, that's right where I went.
Okay. Brendan has a question for you. So Dave, not PC related, not PC repair related, but I'm trying to repair a Nintendo GameCube where the laser won't read the disc.
Ooh.
Oh, so he's gonna Discord you the question.
All right. So, but I'll give you a couple of thoughts here. Man, there's a lot of horribleness that can happen to an optical disc reader. The one that everybody tests first, and it's never it, is a dirty lens or on either the laser output or on the receiver side. Mm-hmm. And so they make these extra thick and kind of velvety or fabricy optical disc things that are designed to spin and clean that. Okay, try it, but I don't buy that. The motor, the stepper motor, that it's not a stepper motor, it's linear. That can fail. Talking about the motor that moves the laser in or out. Simple things. There are physical connectors, 1 or 2 of them, on the optical reader in that Xbox. So once you get that chassis off, you may find something that's just wiggled loose, either from where it connects to the primary PC board or to the unit itself. As Mike has said in the past, Scott's experienced, I have experienced this, the #1 piece of equipment that fails in anything, a computer, a game, a lathe, whatever you got, is power supply. And it's not unusual to get a broken wire, to get a broken circuit within the power supply, loose connectors, a wire loose within the connector. Of all your chances, there's a, boy, that looked terrible when I saw myself on the delayed playback of that, was popping the wire out of the connector. It didn't look pretty. Sorry, guys. Nothing untoward intended. So I don't know about Nintendo power supplies, but I know that if I were going to open one up, I would have my handy dandy volt-ohm meter or multimeter ready to go, looking for and hoping for power output out of every colored wire somewhere, and compare that against the contents of a black wire. But I'll talk to you on Discord if there's more, but I always hunt power supply first and then the optical unit next, because there's more moving parts in that thing than there is in the rest of the unit, except for any fans. You got any more, Scott? Any other thoughts on that?
At 214, Kevin asks, will you be getting the new Compute Module 4?
So it got a lot of press this week, including Jeff Geerling, who overclocked it and did some cool testing on it. I have never played with the compute models. I'm not afraid of them. There's no practical use for me, and probably for most of you. So would I get it just to show you I got it and it works very similar to a Raspberry Pi 4? No, I'm probably not going to get one. If you're going to play in that arena, you need 2 pieces of equipment. You need the compute module itself, which is not expensive. They're about $25 for a Model 4. And I'll talk about that in a second, because there's 3 different sub versions of that. And then you need a compute module IO board. And it looks kind of like a small motherboard that's got slots in it. You pay more money, you get more slots, But the magic of that is each slot holds a compute module. So you can very easily cluster and amplify computing power. So no, I won't get it. They do come with one cool thing that the native Pis don't come with. And by default, they are missing one native cool thing that standalone Raspberries do. The cool thing that they come with is a built-in flash drive. So there's a 4 gig version, an 8 gig version, I think all the way up to a 32 gig. So you don't need a micro SD card to boot them or anything like that. You got to bring it up one time, and then you copy your boot environment into that memory, and think of it as a little hard drive. And very cool. The thing they don't come by default with is Wi-Fi interfaces. They don't come with any interfaces, again, because that's all done on the I/O board. And there aren't many I/O boards that have a Wi-Fi circuit on them. You can buy the compute module with onboard supported Wi-Fi. Nah, not buying one.
So right after that, Andre has a question about today's project. Will I need to configure something on the Pi first, or just install the switch and then configure it?
The order doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. So we will do that.
Yep.
And then of course, Elbow was like, there's no power switch on a Raspberry Pi?
No, there ain't. If you want to power it up, you got to plug in the little, if it's a Raspberry Pi 4, the USB-C connector. And if it's everything previous, it's the micro USB connector. What I've always used in the past is a little inline switch that goes between the power brick and the Pi, and make this little push button switch. I didn't bring any down this morning, but this afternoon. But now this is kind of a cool thing just to add it.
Okay, cool.
And maybe that's the problem with your PC. Does it have an on-off switch? Have you?
Wow. Or is it
You
set
know
to
what? That's not the dumbest question I've ever asked. I'm thinking about this. So he's got 2 different Mobos with the same symptom. Now there's a lot of commonality. Could be dead CPU, could be dead power supplies. He may have wired the power switch header wrong.
That could be too. Sure. But he says it powers up. It just doesn't, the screen doesn't light up.
That's true. Okay.
So
hey, it could be monitor.
That's true. Like, check. The storm just got here.
Okay,
So,
yeah, and I'm clear here. So if we lose you, I'll yammer.
all right. Sounds good.
I have said this in the past, and this is still true. 218, Connor Wellman says GTKIF. I know what GTFO is. I don't know what that one is. I'm not
I
going
even
to look
looked it up and I can't figure it out.
Okay. Somebody spell it out. We're dumb. We're old.
And Tulowit's making lots of jokes about waiting for a phone call. His
I
friend
see that.
Yeah, needs to lend him a hand. Yeah.
Sorry, we can't afford to call Hawaii. Man, you remember those days when calling out of state, and the farther the state away was, the more it cost?
I do.
And everything else that had to do with Hawaii, and still shipping to Hawaii, except for USPS. God love the USPS for shipping to Alaska and Hawaii. But
yeah.
Oh, let's see. Once you go down the Python path, yeah, I can see that happening. Sorry, I super scrolled. There we go. I'm at 222 and rolling. Okay, Jeff Gerling, thank you. That's a very subtle cutoff reference, Tulowit. Nice.
I thought it was great. Yeah. Very funny stuff.
What are my favorite Raspberry Pi projects? Asked Trampus at 223. Whatever I'm working on this week. Though I've got some servers that have been running forever and I use them all the time. My Plex server, my Kodi server, I've been running that for years. Lately, I've come back into Pi-hole. They just run, they do their thing, but I love that they do that. So I don't have to work on them every day. I do manually update all my Pis every Wednesday just to get ready for this, to the update and upgrade. Yes, I'm going to answer this question for you, Tulowit. At 225, you asked Elbow if he's got a voltmeter. We all have a voltmeter.
Wow. Wow. And this, keep in mind, Dave actually has a degree in electrical engineering. So,
And I have been shocked by more voltage than all of you put together. My biggest hit was 600 AC. I hit a vacuum tube with a couple of fingers and I flew.
wow.
That was fun. It was a good story for weeks. Hey, did you see Dave when
That's when he woke up.
We all did.
Yeah, and I'm gonna
Dopamine boost. Yeah, right, Kevin. You're on it. I'm with you. I think Scott is too. At 226, when you're working on a project for a long time and you finally solve it, man, what a eureka moment! And you can do anything for the next hour.
Yep. No, I love it. I love it. Absolutely.
I missed an earlier part of this conversation where Connor Wellman says at 226, you can't pick 3 options on an A+ exam. I guess that means there's no questions that have 3 answers, only 1s and 2s.
Well, I think it was in reference to you pulled all 3 out.
Oh,
replaced them.
Got it.
Which one could it be?
Okay. Yep. That's a much better interp.
So yeah, Ulysses at 229, and a
Who
lot
said
of
he's from Venezuela and lives in Tampa? So
right. Lightning capital of the entire country, by the way. So be careful there. Tampa, yeah.
Oh man.
But the question, and a lot of people have already jumped in, so figured we should too. Okay. And that is, I'm planning on applying for a PC repair help desk job, and I don't have my A+ yet. I'm still studying for it. Should I wait until I get my A+, or should I apply regardless?
Okay, so 30-second timeout before we jump in on that. Everybody type in the answer. Type in the 3-word answer that he needs to do, and then we'll add our 2 cents. And while I wait for that 30 seconds, Brandon, I'll tell you what, if the at 227, if the motors are dead in it, there are some great how-to YouTubes on how to take a laser optical thing and turn it into a burning laser for paper. That's a cool, fun project. Yeah, you got to use safety glasses. You can really put your eye out, kid. All right, so I'm not looking at the end, but can I imagine?
Everybody was like,
what I thought I said?
Why?
Okay.
Yeah.
So go ahead and take that one. I'll look for some questions while you're doing that.
Yep. So yeah, get a job. And that of course is straight out of the man, the myth, the legend. Mike Meyers would have answered, get a job.
That's right.
Just like that in his best William Shatner voice.
Right. 229, Ulysses. Not really. And I'm with you on that. I spent a lot of time in Florida on a bunch of gigs. And of course, everybody knows there, except in winter, you can set your watch by the 2-hour period that the thunderstorms start and waft their way across the whole state. And yeah, the lightning storms there are just incredible.
They're amazing.
All right. Ulysses says, not related to PC repair, but I'm planning on applying. Okay, that was it. So I caught up with you.
It was the 229.
He lives in Tansa. Heck yeah, apply, get a job. So
Yep.
Look, I mean, if they turn you down, they turn you down. But you can show them, hey, look, I'm working on my A+. I do these extracurricular things, and I will continue to work on certification while I've got the job. And you can teach me your way of doing things. So,
right.
And never shy away because some job has more credentials or calls for more credentials than you have. Mike says in many cases, those are just scareways to scare away the wimps. So go in and stick it out.
So at 231, and everybody, I love the advice that people are giving Ulysses, scheduling for your exam, getting practice questions. Yeah, all of this stuff is incredibly useful, but just jumping in there and go for it.
Yeah, I will dig up the link to Mike's job hunting presentation. That would be a really good thing for him. Things to do to prep for the interview: dress nice, brush your teeth,
right,
gargle.
Back in June, I think.
Yeah.
middle of June.
Kevin Lopez wants to know if I've done any projects with Pi Zeros. I have done many projects with Pi Zeros. I got a pair of them sitting here. A lot of these I could do with Pi Zero. I tend to use 3Bs because I got a big pile of them and they're always looking for some work to do. And the Pi Zero only has a half a gig of RAM. So if I'm going to make a specific project that I'm not going to put a bunch of stuff in, I'm not going to do what I always do, add a web server and add an FTP server and add. If I just wanted to do one thing, like today, maybe all I ever want to do is have a Pi that can turn on or off with a button. It's kind of a useless thing, but that would be a great thing for a Zero. And there's lots of applications that aren't real memory hungry that are just perfect for a Pi Zero. It's a one job, it's a dedicated thing. Maybe you put one or two things in there. Pi-hole is fantastic on a Pi Zero for a home installation. You got, I look around my place, not including all the Pis that I got running these days. There are give or take 20 computer devices between the cell phones and the TV and the computers and the laptops and whatever. That's a snooze for a Pi Zero running Pi-hole.
And a Pi-hole, for those of you who missed that presentation, is a way of taking a very simple machine, a Raspberry Pi, and essentially putting it in between your DNS server and what's coming in. And it essentially blocks all the kind of crap and ads and stuff that, so you don't even need an ad blocker anymore. Right. It just blocks it completely. And go back and look at Dave's presentation on how to make a Pi-hole. Yeah. And you'll be like, oh, that's what I need to do with my Pi.
5 weeks ago. Oh yeah, it's a simple install. Yeah. I overdo it as usual in these presentations, but if you just follow the step-by-step, it's really, really easy.
Yep.
K497, MK4, no, that's K4. Like, remembers long distance calls, yeah. Long distance calling. Man. I like the place. Every Thursday night, there's a television channel up here that does film noir all night. Starts at about 7 o'clock and goes on all night. I'm usually working here, but it's running in the background. I love old film noir, and they use those great things. Make a collect call, make a person-to-person call. I like to make a long distance call.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. Tolowitz says shipping. I ordered an MTB and canceled it when shipping was going to be $600 for a mountain bike, for a 550 mountain bike. That's nuts.
That is crazy.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
First step in passing schedule is, yeah, right. Okay. So Patricia Grace reminds us of Mike Word's that heat and pressure make diamonds. So, don't take a year studying at your leisure. If you're going to take the A+ test, give yourself a hard deadline, schedule the test, a reasonable amount of time out, and then dedicate time to go take that test, to prep for that test. You should dedicate time to take it too.
Yeah, right. Sorry, I'm just looking at the sky around me.
How's it doing? Your room?
Getting dark.
A little dark.
Yeah. The thunderstorms in Houston are fun. Not as crazy as when I lived in El Paso, but.
Yeah. Hey, what's the drive time El Paso to Lubbock, roughly? About 4 hours?
6 hours, I think.
6 hours, that much? Okay.
Yeah. It's quite a ways. That was back when we drove 55. Your mileage won't vary.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, passing 236. Elbow stepped out for a second. Got a Sammy. Okay, good. So you're eating at your desk now. This is what we want to see, or whatever you sit at and monitor computer. GPU.
Oh, Elbow, you're actually not going to break in the middle of this and go get some food? That's awesome. Tolowitz, I'm just a simple tech trying to make my way in the universe. I love it.
All right. I made it to the list of get a jobs.
Yep, I'm there too.
Yeah, get the experience and the sublimit with certs. Okay, I'm going to nod at that. I'm not
I'm
sure.
going to nod at that too.
I know Andy's into our philosophy, so.
So
I'm trying to turn that into sublimate and submit, and I'm just.
I know, right? And it's like, are we talking about a printing process or are we talking about something else?
Good advice, Andre.
And also really good advice, Krampus. I mean, some really good stuff.
Very good. You guys, I'm not sure if you're drinking our Kool-Aid or we're drinking yours, but it's good stuff.
Yep.
All right. Am I getting close to the end here? Yeah, I'm getting very close to the end. So if that's the case, let me answer a couple more of these, and then we're going to dive into Uncle Project.
All right. Sounds good.
So fun. Yeah, I'm going to call you Krampus because that's what all the horror movies and the mythological creature in Europe is. You're exactly right. Have some questions and have legitimate questions. Don't have questions because as an interviewee, you're supposed to have questions. Look into the company, look into the job, look into the people, and what do you want to know about them? And don't start with the first question. I have some vacation time that I was going to take in my last job that's happening 3 weeks after I'm supposed to start here. Can I have that? How many paid holidays and sick days do I get? Okay, those are not the questions they want you to ask.
No, definitely not.
A pie hole is like a sarlacc for your network. That's going to be a Star Wars reference that the deep Star Warsers know that I don't. Sarlacc.
I don't know it.
Okay, me too.
So
Kevin, 243.
Krampus says yes. That's how you pronounce it.
Okay. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. And supplement.
There we go. Okay.
Supplement it with a cert. Thank you, Patricia.
Makes it work. Right. Kevin Lopez, an SD card copier utility. What's the difference between selecting a new partition UUID as opposed to leaving it unchecked? Is it full backup versus just back up your files? Okay. So first of all, this tells me that there be a newer right etcher kind of program out there. Use the Raspberry Pi. What the hell is its official real name? Sorry about the language on that. I just switched to it 2 weeks ago. Raspberry Pi Imager. So you're probably using SD Writer 32 or no, Win32 Image. That's what you're using. Win32 Disk Imager. So, okay, it's a usable thing. And you can use that to clone cards from card to card. You can use it to copy your card as an image file to your computer and vice versa. What it's asking there is when you create a partition, it gets a universal ID number. If you're going to create a clone of the card that's going in a different computer than the one that you cloned this out of, assuming here's the original with sock puckets. I'm going to do interpretive dance here. So it's got an original, it's got a UUID, and let's make my life easy. The UUID is 1234. My plan is to duplicate this onto this one. And when I'm done, I'm going to put this back in Pi number 1, and I'm going to put this one back in Pi number 2. I know I was doing you a favor, cover my face. In that case, it's okay to have duplicate UUIDs because the two will never communicate their partition information. One won't become a utility for the other, and it's fine. It's kind of like having two Windows machines. They both have a C drive. That's okay. But if you're going to put these two micro SD cards in the same Pi, the same computer, they can't have the same UUIDs. So you don't clone those. You let the imager create a different one. Otherwise, the two will conflict in the same way that again, if you had two drives labeled C: in the same computer, the computer wouldn't know what to do with them. But dump it, switch to the Raspberry Pi Imager. Better, smarter, stronger, faster when you're dealing with Raspberry Pi images. Scott, you having weather there? I'm seeing some color changes in your room.
It's things are happening. So I could go away.
Okay. Well, we hope not.
Yeah.
I'll run down with my laptop if it happens.
So the Sarlacc pit
Yes.
was where Boba Fett met his end in Return of the Jedi, which I've only watched twice because Ewoks, ew.
I'll take Ewoks any day over Jar Jars.
Oh, well, okay. All right. All right. I'll go there. Absolutely.
All right. Yes to how you pronounce. I like that. What? Okay. All right. I don't see anything that I need to dive into. Oh, here, what's this? So what happens if you put two drives of the same UUIDA onto a Windows system? Does it figure out? It depends, actually. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I don't have a 100% answer for this, but I think it's all about UFI BIOS. If you start with a UFI BIOS, to my understanding, your world lives with GUID numbers, which are also UUID numbers. And so you get two same numbers, the system is going to confuse them in the registry. But I'm reaching out on a limb here, and I may have just totally made all that stuff up. There's two ways to come up with that answer: research or try it.
I highly recommend trying it because, what could go wrong?
I totally recommend trying it. Just don't do it on your production drive. Pull out your production drive and get a couple hard drives that you can experiment with.
I mean, part of the fun of having spare parts, right?
Right.
Get to try all kinds of crazy stuff.
Best Star Wars character of all time is the junk monster in the Death Star. Okay. You got to love the little eye.
That was back
All right.
before special effects. Yeah, something like that.
I'm going back to notes here for a second. And in order to go back to notes, we have to start with.
So what's about to happen is Dave's going to do the presentation for the day. I'm going to be watching the live stream. My picture is going to go away when he flashes the screen, and I'll be answering questions and stuff on the side as they come up. I
can also still talk. We can hear him while we're doing this.
Yep. So it's all good. And for those of you who have not been on here for our Friday shows, I have the kind of feed that I'm looking at above me on a monitor, but I'm also watching the live feed to my right. So when I turn to the right, when Dave is saying something very serious and I start cracking up, it just broke me.
Never happens.
So always good.
And I think my head is in a little window box in the corner here, but if not, I don't care. I'll come back to head shortly. So we are going to install a button onto Raspberry Pi that we can use to turn it on or turn it off. Simple enough. The button we're going to install today isn't exactly like this picture. It's actually pretty close to it. I'm not going to walk you through how to mount it in a case. All you need is a little drill. Drill a tiny hole, unscrew a nut at the top of your handy dandy little button and put it in there. So I'm going to use a breadboard or a little pre-wired switch that I bought off of eBay. And I'm thinking, Scott, about talking to Kathy about building some little hardware kits with just the hardware stuff that we've talked about here. They would be very inexpensive, and see if we can get her to sell those for an obscene amount of profit. We can put them together for $5 and sell them for 30. But a switch and an LED and a little breadboard, something like that, we could do a nice little kit here that's not as big and expansive as the ones you buy. All right, so let's do some business here. What am I doing this on? We're going to do this today on a Raspberry Pi 3B.
Okay.
With I think it's got a 16 gig card in it. I could do this with an 8 gig card very easily. Let me change cameras. I did some lighting experiments today, and I don't know how this is going to look, but we'll take a peek. Oops, I turned my video off. There we go.
Yeah, you did.
But I know how to figure that out.
It was full screen, man. It was my moment.
So I got a Raspberry Pi 3B down here. There's two wires sticking out of it. They're going into the GPIO header, which I know you can't see, but that's okay. I got them going over to a breadboard, and on the breadboard, I have a little push button switch. And then also over here is the handy dandy little push button that I bought off of eBay. I know that look, the red button and my red shirt in the background, not stunning, but it's just a little switch that's normally open. Contacts are not made till you press the button, and then the contacts make contact with each other, and that will cause a short circuit of these two handy dandy wires. So we're going to take these two little handy wires and we're going to plug them to a couple of appropriate pins on the GPIO header, and off we go.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
You too can do this, and so you should. So let's, all right, so that's a Pi 3B. This works fine on every model of Pi, he said with a big lie in his mouth. So it works on every model from the first one through the 3B. And it works on the 4s, but not all of them. But we got away. So what happened is in the early release of the Model 4s, there were some incompletions. There are some things that people called flaws, and okay, fine. They have all been fixed. So at some certain date and certain board rev, this will work just fine out the door. But for that brief intermediate period from the time that the 4 was released until those fixes came out, it doesn't work, except now they have a fix for it, and I'm going to show you how to apply the fix. So
Okay.
it will work on every model of Pi that exists out there.
So in case some people were not here last Friday when you talked about doing this project,
Yeah.
the importance of the power button, right, is because normally you start a Pi by plugging in the power, right? That's how it boots up. And so you would think that you could just shut it down by disconnecting the power supply and it'd be fine, right?
And yet it wouldn't quite be right. Remember back a million years ago in the Microsoft days, if you turned off the computer, especially, let's not early days, let's start with Win95. If you turn off a Win95 machine and just power it off, it could corrupt the operating system. And so we had to run this power down command. Well, Linux is still like that. If you don't have any write operations going on when you pull the plug, it's okay, but there's no way to guarantee that that's not going on without issuing the shutdown command. So our little button push is going to issue the shutdown command, close any open files, and then power off the unit. So that beats unplugging and plugging. It also beats unplugging and plugging because all these old Pis use micro USB connectors. And as you know, in a phone, those things wear out. When you wear one out, you go to the handy dandy little dock in the box phone repair shop, and they will install a new one for you for $50. And they're not that friendly on the Pis when you kill it on here, unless you're pretty brave with your own soldering iron. The right thing to do is to replace it. So this solves that problem.
All right. So now we know. Now we have motivation.
Yeah. So I'm going to use a breadboard. Just want to remind everybody how a breadboard works. We got these two columns on the outside. They are separated from one another electrically, but each hole here, these little square holes that goes down, are connected to each other. So I could put some plus voltage on one of these holes, and that would give me plus all the way down. And I could put a ground connection on here. Maybe I do plus 5 volts on this side, and over here I do plus 3 volts. That's another common electronics voltage and ground. These are called pads. They're holes, but they're called pads. And they are electrically connected horizontally to one another. So if I plug something into this hole, like the terminal of a switch, and a wire into any other hole in the row, they will be electrically connected as if they were in physical contact with one another. So that's kind of how I've got my switch set up. Wires, we use these DuPont cables, they're called. There's a little female on here that goes onto the pins, they're called header pins on your Raspberry Pi. And then these little pointy ends go into the holes on a breadboard. And here's the kind of switch that I have on my breadboard. These are very tiny. I'm not going to stick one in my hand. They're very tiny, little more than a 1/4 inch side to side. You can see they've got two little terminals sticking out of them. They're designed to go into breadboard pads or into holes on a circuit board, and you can solder them. This button is raised right now. When you press it down, while you press it down, you short those terminals. And when you release pressure on it, they're spring loaded, they come back up. Here's how we're going to wire it, schematically speaking. This little wire, this pin here, is one of the ground pins on the Raspberry Pi header. There's 4 or 6 of them. And then this is one of the GPIO pins. If we number these, this is pin number 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so forth. We got odd numbers going here. This is pin 2 through 40. And the way you can tell which is pin 1, is it this one? Is it this one? Is it this one? Or is it this one? Is to flip your Raspberry Pi over, excuse me, so you can see the solder blobs. One of the connectors on here, in fact, one of the connectors on every device will have a square solder blob, and all the other ones will be round. That's an industry standard. Square solder blob is pin 1. So here's a close-up of that pre-wired switch that I got off of eBay. So if I want to mount this thing on a case, I'm going to drill a hole that's this diameter and push that up through the case and screw the little lock washer and nut on it. Plug these guys into the appropriate pins on the GPIO header. So this is how my breadboard is actually wired up. I got those 2 pins. Pin number 5, which is GPIO 3. He's going over to one of the breadboard rows that I have the switch plugged into. Switch goes off to another row. It's a different row. Connects to another wire, and that goes over to the ground header. And that's the schematic symbol for a switch. So let's take a look at this. There are GPIO numbers, and they don't correspond to the pin numbers on the header. We did a lab a couple weeks ago where we used some GPIO pins on here to turn on an LED. We're going to use those very same connections. It's kind of a cool concept. I'm going to take this GPIO number 3, which is pin 5. When I used it to light up an LED, we put voltage on this thing and ran it through a circuit, through a resistor, through an LED, and then back to ground. And we used a web command to issue power to that pin. Now we're going to work it the other way around. We're going to say, I want you to check the status of a switch when it's shorted out. We're going to go back and revisit this guy later. I got some things to show you about this for an upcoming lab. We don't need that. We're done with all the graphics here.
Got a question that came up in the feed.
Yep.
Will this power button also turn on and off the fan if you have a fan connected to your Pi?
Yes.
Okay.
Because power off, power's off, all the power to the whole Pi except for a tiny little bit of trickle current that goes through GPIO 3 so that it can watch for a button push to turn it back on. So the whole thing is effectively powered down. It's kind of like an Intel AMD computer. There's a power good wire that's providing a little bit of power for monitoring circuit, but otherwise everything else is off. Okay. So what do you need? What do I got to go buy if I didn't already? You need to buy a switch. Now you got 2 ways of doing that. You can buy one of these pre-wired switches. If you look for GPIO Raspberry Pi button on eBay, you'll find the source where I got mine. This How Chew site that I pointed you to, he sells a pair of them for 10 bucks. I don't know what he charges for shipping, but that's a fair deal.
Cool.
Or if you're feeling brave or you got any kind of experience or you want to get some experience, buy a switch and some wires and connectors and a soldering iron and solder and start to learn to solder. Good thing to do. Okay, so last week I lied, and it wasn't on purpose for a change. I was mistaken about something. I had done this lab many times on a particular computer, and it didn't need any code. But it turns out that that's not the case for every model of Pi. So we're going to do a code-based one that does work on every model.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. And as I said, I'm going to do this in 3 phases. I'm going to do this in a phase that's, first of all, super quick. Plug in your buttons, run this, download and run this script, and you're done. It'll work. You don't need to do anything else. If you need to know anything else, bam, it works. And I'll demo that. Then I'm going to show you the fix for the certain Raspberry Pi 4 models. And then for anybody who are really looking, it's not painful, but to look at and learn a little bit about what's going on in the background, we'll take a peek at that.
Okay, cool.
So step number 1, I'm not going to demo this. We all do this all the time. Before you do anything that involves adding software, you run 2 commands, sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade. You can do that on a single command line, join them with double ampersands. And then when it's done, I'm going to set mine up with power down. The fastest way to kill a Raspberry Pi is to short 2 wrong GPIO pins. Once you do, the Pi is a brick and put it in. Yeah, I'm really.
Wow. I was.
Okay, the Raspberry Pi forum is rife with reports of, I accidentally bridged these 2 pins and now it won't boot. Okay, you got 2 choices, trash can or put it in a nice little mat box and hang it up. The first Pi I killed. So do this initial wiring with power off. If you're brave, you're stupid, and I am both of those things. You could do this power on, but it really helps to kind of know what you're doing first.
Okay.
So you go back to those pictures that I had.
All right.
Zing. All right, so we're going to take, the cool thing about switches is they aren't polarized. You can't put them in backward. So it's traditional to put one with a black wire on a ground pin and something with a colorful wire on a powerful pin, but it makes no difference at all. So you're going to get your 2 little female connectors here, and you're going to slide them over the pins that stick up here at pin number 5 and pin number 246. That's it. The wiring is done now. Before you hit power back to your unit, this is a double check and a triple check. Bring your kid in with the better eyesight than you have. Bring the wife in, bring the magnifying glass in, use the zoom function on the phone. Double check and make sure that you're 3 pins away from pin 1. 3 pins away from pin 2. How you want to describe that? 2 pins, 3 pins. This is the most dangerous part, and it's not really dangerous, but it's the riskiest place. All right, that's done. We have a switch connected. And if you want to, before you power up, if you want to get the thing mounted into the lid of your case or the side of your case, now's a good time to do that too, but you can always do it later.
Okay, cool.
Okay, before continuing, double check your work. Make sure you got the right pins. Make sure it's fully inserted. Now we're going to use GPIO pin 3 for this exercise. Fine. There are 26 GPIO pins, and you can use any one that you want. All you have to do is make a minor change to one of the files that we're going to mess with to say, hey, we're not using 3, we're using 22. And I mentioned this for a couple reasons. 10 of the GPIO pins are pure GPIO pins. 3 isn't one of them. All the other pins, all the other 18s are dual purpose. You can either use them as GPIO pins or they have some other internal native functionality that we can enable. And 3 is one of those ones. Fine for today's demo because I'm not going to do anything with that. But the thing we're messing with is one of the pins that's called an I2C pin or an I2C if you like. If you're ever going to mess with the I2C interface, wouldn't be a good idea to use GPIO pin 3 for this exercise. Use it on one of the boring dedicated GPIOs. So I'm going to go back and revisit that graphic in a little bit and review that.
Okay.
Okay, so we're halfway done. We now power up our system. You have to power it up the old-fashioned way. Plug it in or plug in the wall thing and let it come up. And I'm going to demo this now. So I've just booted my Raspberry Pi with power. I've got the switch plugged in. Let me set up a session so that you can watch this. This one.
Are you switching screens?
I'm going to. I'm turning it on.
Okay.
And now I will share.
All right, cool.
So built into the Raspberry Pi is software that will allow you to power it up with our button without adding any other code. But you have to shut it down correctly the first way. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to shut this thing down, and I'm going to say sudo shutdown minus H now. Okay, sudo, because it won't do it if I don't. Shut down, closes any open files. /H tells it to provide that little monitor voltage on all the GPIO pins. Doesn't matter which one we do here. And now, if you don't do the now, it won't start the shutdown process until 1 minute. You can also do other times. You can do -T and some number of seconds. So as soon as I hit this, it's going to lose connection. Bam, we've lost connection. I'll stop sharing. And I'm going to give that 30 or 40 seconds to shut down.
Okay.
And then all I'm going to do is use my handy dandy little button that I've got on the breadboard. I'll stick it up here in front of the camera to the best of my ability. That'll work. There's two little LEDs on Pi 3s and Pi 4s, a red one that tells you that power is plugged into it, and then a green one that flashes periodically for various different reasons, but that tells you that the Pi is functioning. And so I wait until the green one stops flashing for 20 or 30 seconds, and then I know it's fully down.
Okay.
Okay, now I appear in the upper right-hand corner when I do this, right? If I share a screen?
Yes.
I believe.
Unless I start talking.
I don't know what I just. I'm not still sharing with you. So
No.
I see what I did.
You are not sharing yet.
Yeah, I got to do this. Okay, share screen. I'm going to take you back to the disconnected Pi. Now, what happens with VNC is when a Pi loses connection, it keeps calling out to the Pi to see if it ever comes back. So I'm pressing my handy dandy little button here. It's pressed. I saw a flash of the green light on the Pi. It's not on right now, but now it's going through the boot process. If I had a real screen hooked up to this, I would see the rainbow splash and then the list of all the files that are coming up. Meantime, this thing is calling out, hey, is the VNC server working on this thing yet? Is the VNC working yet? And you know I can sit here and talk for 20 minutes and say, you know what, let's just leave the screen and we'll talk about something else until it comes up. And as soon as I do that, bam,
Right.
there it is. Hey, we got
Oh,
So that was it. Came back up with a button push, no software, no nothing. So that's pretty darn cool if you shut it down with that shutdown -H function.
and once you've done that once, then it's written and you're
No,
good to
you
go?
still have to shut it down the same way manually until we get our handy dandy little program here. When
Okay.
we get our program installed, when we press the button, it will run shutdown -H.
Okay. So Elbow has a question
All right,
specific to the topic.
I'm ready and willing.
If you use -T
Yes.
and a defined number of seconds,
Mm-hmm.
is there a way to display a warning message displaying the amount of time that says it will shut down?
Yes. And I think it's -W, which stands for wall. It's related to the -W that will issue a warning message to everyone. In fact, shutdown has a couple really cool things like that. There's a shutdown that you can specify a warning or wall -W shutting down in 1 minute. And it's a lie. You could just send that message to everybody out with the shutdown command. And that's kind of your elbow nudge to say, everybody log out, but you're not really going to shut it down. So if you do shutdown space --help, That'll give you all the parameters that you can do with shutdown, including, let's say I did a shutdown without a now or a time parameter. I got 60 seconds before it starts. You can do a shutdown. I think it's -C that will cancel the shutdown. That make sense?
Absolutely.
It's
And
cool.
Andre, I guess you missed Dave's response to your question on the fan. And yes, doing this exercise, the switch that we've just installed and the script that we're about to install will shut down the fan and everything else. So
Exactly
and
correct.
it'll turn it all back on.
Okay, so the Pi is set up. We've tested it. We know that it can power on. So that part's functional. That's pretty darn cool. So now we got to get the program. And this is not one of those sudo apt install programs. It doesn't live in the repository. It lives in GitHub. All right, anybody know what GitHub is? No, I don't want to see you type in full paragraph answers here. Scott, tell us about GitHub.
GitHub is a place where people put repositories of all kinds of scripts and codes and everything that you can just go get.
Exactly right.
Hub,
so,
right?
Yep. So GitHub is this commercial place. It's presently owned by Microsoft. They recently bought it in the last year or so.
Yep.
And developers go there. They can use space. You just sign up and become a member, and they give you X amount of space, and you can write and store your code there, and you can distribute it from there. You can work collaboratively on it. And it's not the only Git in existence. Our guys in-house have their own GitHub that they do code development on, and lots of people do. So we're going to use some code that's out on GitHub. And the way that this particular Git is set up is as a clone. He has all of the files and functions and configs and everything that we're going to need for our installation. So we're going to use a command called git clone, and it will pull down all the files that we need, including an installation bash script. So let me fire up or reconnect over to the server. Stand by 1 second while I get what I need. So, by the way, Git is installed, all the Git commands with Raspberry Pi OS. If you're using another operating system, or if you're using an old version of Raspberry Pi OS, you may have to install Git. It's a really simple thing, sudo apt install Git. All right, stand by, almost there. All right, now I can share. All right, I think I've got this size so that we can see it. I very carefully and slowly type in the command. Wow, look at that, no typos or anything. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
So sadly, Alice is not here today.
I know.
Demo.
All right, so we're going to git clone, and here is the place that we're cloning from. And this file, this git file, will tell the git clone command what to download from. So bam, buzz, grind. That was quick, because it's not a really very sophisticated script. Now I'm here in my home folder when I started this, and that's fine. So let me do an ls and show you what appeared. A new folder appeared. So part of that git clone said what to do with it. Create a folder called Pi Power Button and put all the stuff that we need in there. So let's go visit that. cd pi. No typos on this one either. Why do you ask? And here we've got a listen for shutdown.sh file. There's no mandatory extensions in programs here, but sh tells us that it's a bash file. There's a Python file. There's a script folder. There's some diagrams. But again, we're doing this one the quick way. We're just going to follow the instructions. So the next thing on that page of instructions says to run the installation program. And they don't know where we were when we started this process. So they gave us a full path to it. I'll show you what I mean. So they started out with .whack. That means that's a shortcut that says run the bash interpreter. and run it on a program that's in the PyPower button folder / the script folder / the install folder. So he runs this installation, and I'm going to show you something on here. You're going to see this kind of, it looks like an error message. It's not. This thing is done. It's actually returned to the prompt. It just doesn't know it. You can Control C at this point, or you can enter. So here we got this warning. Well, let's see what everything I have there. It says I'm installing the shutdown listener. That's a program that's just going to watch that GPIO pin for a button push. And then it's going to start the program that does the listening, and it did a bunch of other things I'm going to show you later. And then he gave us a warning. He says, warning, a physical pull-up resistor is fitted on this channel. A pull-up resistor is a little electronic component that says there is a moderate amount of voltage on this wire that may or may not be sufficient to do a job. So we add this resistor, and a resistor sounds like something that should cause voltage to reduce, but if you install it in the right way, in the right place, it actually causes voltage to increase. It's okay. It doesn't matter if this error happens or if this error doesn't happen. What we did here is we ran a command on the GPIO pin 3 that says set it to input mode, and then there's internal pull up and pull down resistors, and it said, hey, use the pull up, pull down resistors, which is in a Python class called gpio.pud, pull up, pull down, and set it to pull up mode. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to care. All we're doing is making sure that there's enough voltage to make it worth the program to watch. So we're done. You are actually completely done with this lab and this exercise. Gonna see if I can bring my button into view here a little bit. And so watching the screen and watch me press the button, bam, it did a shutdown, -H now. I'll give it 20 seconds to shut down. I'll keep my hands off the keyboard. I can't keep it up that long. I don't have enough blood in my arm. But trust me, I'm not touching anything other than my desktop, literal physical top of my desk. Give that about 10 more seconds. It shuts down pretty quick. I don't see any green flashes. 5. One of the things I haven't tested is if you try and power it during the shutdown. My guess is nothing happens. It's too busy. So then it's already shut out the monitor program. All right, so we hit the button again here. And I will put this off to the side. Look, no hands, nothing up my sleeve.
Kevin thinks you're cheating using your toes.
Right. I actually have the missus sitting right here next door saying, okay, I'm not, now press it. Plug that in. So folks, that couldn't be simpler. You add a couple of wires and a button, and you run this git clone. Here it comes. And that's it. Oh, and then you run the install program. So I just think that is beyond slick. In fact, it's so far beyond slick that I'm going to give you $1 million marketing idea. I have this theory. Everything ever invented has already been done, or maybe the other way around. Anything you can ever think of has already been done. You just think of the wildest recipe combination, olives, onions, and peanut butter. And you go look it up. Somebody has a dish that's documented on the web that features olives, onions, and peanut butter. Yeah, I know.
I just threw up a little in my mouth.
Yeah. So I have this idea for this concept, how to monitor a button and to react by running a particular command. And it seems so obvious. It seems like it should be done all over the place. Well, I've been hunting for it for days. And if it exists, I can't find it. So I'm going to show you the layout of an idea that you might do this as a project. You're going to need a little bit of Python code.
Okay.
Okay, item next. We're done with it. We got to deal with the Raspberry Pi 4 issue. Oh, by the way, if you ever want to uninstall this, there's an uninstall script in the same place. You just .whack in the name of the .whack path uninstall.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And if you deleted any of this stuff, you can always just git clone it again. So super enough. Okay. Raspberry Pi 4. I'm scrolling down pages. And it says to show you one of my PDF files. So, okay, I'll do that. Yeah, right here. I know you can't see it yet. Stand by. So the solution here is a Raspberry Pi Foundation solution. They know that they didn't do everything that they intended to do at the first release. They've been working for a long time. We're about a year into the Raspberry Pi 4, and a lot of this stuff was completed very recently. And so they document exactly what you have to do. Now, I'll give you the short version right now. There are two ways to update and fix your Raspberry Pi 4, and they are permanent fixes. And you can do this on a current one. It won't hurt it if you try and sort of overdo what they've got going on. The Raspberry Pi computer, here's where you're going to go get it, raspberrypi.org, whack documentation, whack hardware. Just do a Google on Raspberry Pi boot EEPROM, and you'll find that page. Okay, so the Raspberry Pi isn't quite like computers, Intel and AMDs like you and I are used to. It doesn't have a BIOS chip in it per se, but there is a related chip. It's a flash drive that holds a little bit of code that kind of does BIOS-like function. It's a double EEPROM, electronically erasable, programmable, read-only memory. It's flashable, and that's what we're going to do. And there are two ways to flash it. And all of this is documented on that page. Somebody making a flash pun?
Yes. Elbow. It's got a BIOS. Yeah.
All right, we're going to make movies. Hang on. Making art. That's the line. So one of them is to take a Raspberry Pi that doesn't have a micro SD card or anything else in it, and you make an image on a new shiny micro SD card on your PC, on your Mac, on another Raspberry Pi, and you plug it into the Pi and you boot it up, and it goes buzz, 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 grind, 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 and it updates the EEPROM, and you're done. Ugh, what a pain. Since most of us don't have bare bones systems sitting there waiting to be flashed and updated and whatever, they have given us a nice method to let us do it when you've already got an operating system running. And it's a simple 3-command setup. And I don't think I made a slide. I did make a slide to do that. Looking at my slides. Nah, maybe I didn't. Okay, that's right. I can show you this way. We'll copy and paste them into the terminal. I'm not going to run them. Okay, copy that. Open up a terminal session just so you got something to see. Stand by. All right, now set up a share. Have I mentioned in the past how much I hate Zoom? You have to do this in a cumbersome way. All right. So I'm just going to open up a file just so you got something to see, because what I want to do won't work here otherwise. We'll do sudo nano. All right, now I'm in a text editor. You jerk. Hang on, let me go recopy the commands. There we go. So here's a command we all do once a week, right? Sudo apt update. And then we usually follow that with sudo apt upgrade. But if we add to that full dash upgrade, not only will that update and upgrade all of your apps and the operating system, it will upgrade a lot of things that we don't mess with on a day-to-day, including the flash EEPROM. So just like if you were to change a BIOS setting in a computer, that setting doesn't count until you reboot the computer and it can boot up, and post can read all the new settings and check them out. And so we do a sudo reboot. So close any open files, run these 3 commands on your Raspberry Pi 4 if you're running any version of Raspberry Pi OS, and bam, the EEPROM is updated. The GPIO monitor, the wake on monitor will work. And one other cool thing that will work now that didn't work on the early versions, let's close out of here, Control X, no, exit, save. There was a bunch of things that didn't quite get included in the first generation of RPi 4. One of them was wake on GPIO. So that gets fixed with this. The other one is you couldn't boot from anything except a micro SD card. This EEPROM flash fixes that too. So you can now boot from flash drives or USB connected SSDs or whatever. So pretty cool stuff. That's 2 for 3. Only got a little bit to show you now. For those of you, I'm going to do this fast. You can read this and I'm just going to hit the highlights. But I'm going to show you or tell you a little bit about what happened in the installer. So we copied down 3 files when you get down to it. One was an install shell, one was a Python file, and then there was another shell script that added the Python script to run every time the computer is booted. Kind of makes sense. So let me see. I guess the best way to do this is to show you in Nano. Yeah, so I'll stay with where I was. I'll have this done in 10 minutes and then we'll have a full 20 minutes to do normal shutdown stuff. Won't that be fun? Okay, reestablishing a session. Sharing it.
I'm getting pinged by Mike in the background.
Oh, nice.
So
yeah, update everybody on what happened with Mike that to the degree that they need to know.
Oh, you know, he's got a temporary crown. So he broke his tooth right before the live stream on Wednesday, and gamely went on anyway, but had a emergency dentist meeting right in the middle of the stream and had to go. So.
So it was really weird. It was even, it happened so quickly before showtime that he didn't have a chance to bail and say, hey, have Scott and Dave do it. He just, like Scott said, soldiered through it. All right, so here's what happened when we did the git clone and the install shells, install app. Let me see the order I got this thing in here. Did that. It didn't create this stuff. The stuff has already been created, but they give us on that how-to website the step-by-step. If you didn't have access to the GitHub or just wanted to do this manually yourself for the sake of learning, it starts by creating a file, a Python script, and they called it listen for shutdown. Okay. And then here's what goes in there. It's a long bit of a script, but that's my whole point here. I want to cover this. It's not that long. Save that, put this here, and bam. That seems short. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay. All right, so we start out with an identifier that says this is a Python program. We import a couple of processes and subclasses and give them names. So there's a class of process called rpi.gpio, and we're giving it a new name when it runs in this program, just called GPIO. And then these are native Python commands that it knows how to do. So we're going to set up the general functions of all the GPIO pins. This BCM is the Broadcom chip that controls them. And then we're going to do a specific setup on GPIO pin 3. We're going to set it to input, set up the pull up resistor to up. And then this is the core of the program. I want you to wait and watch for GPIO 3 to ever drop voltage. GPIO falling means the voltage drops to some level below whatever the definition of 1 and 0 is, it's usually 2 volts or so. When that happens, when you detect that, run this program, shutdown -H now, and then close the shell. And that's pretty much everything that happens here. There's a couple more things. They tell us what to do with this thing, quit and close the editor. And then they say, you got to put this Python script in the right place. So scripts that we're going to be using during boot up every time should normally be placed in user/local/bin. And the reason that we do that is anything that goes in that folder can be executed from anywhere that you are. If you're sitting in your home folder, if you're sitting in a documents folder, all you have to do is type the name of the program. You don't have to type the full path, user local bin. When you type in the name of a program, this is one of the several places that Linux looks for programs by that name. Then after we move it into that folder, they want us to make it executable. It's a Python script. So, okay, we change mod, exit. There's the name of the file and the path to it. And that's the creation of the Python script. Next. We're going to create another script. This one's a shell script. And it's called listenforshutdown.sh. It's a bash script that's going to be related to the Python script. And this is how we're going to trigger the operation of it every time we boot up. This one's a little longer, but it's not that much longer. Case start. I copied too much last time. There we go. Okay. We make a bin bash. And remember, all of these are comment lines that they start with a £. So it's just an explanation of some things that's going on here. So whenever you want a command to always run, we have to put it in a particular place, and then we have to register it with the auto run program. Now, I'm not going to go through all this junk. Much of this is what we saw when we ran the listen for shutdown install program. So a lot of this echoey stuff here. But again, just create this with a copy paste. Is there anything really critical that I wanted to show you in here? I don't think so. They created a variable $1. This is what we see while the installation program is running. Then they make sure that after we start the Python script, that we stop it to clean it up. All right, nothing critical there. I don't know what ESAC is because I said it before and I'll say it again. I'm not a Python coder, but I will be because I'm feeling it. Last thing to do, really simple step. There's a program in Linux, in fact, there are about 10 of them that run every time you boot the computer. And it holds lists of other programs that you want to run every time. The name of the file of the one that we're going to mess with today is called rc.local. I'm going to skip a couple of steps here, and I'm just going to take you to here. This is a command that's not run in a script. Oh, here, let's finish this. This won't hurt anything. But if I do that, I have to open up the editor just so you can see everything. So there's 3 commands that we got to run. Some of these are my stuff. There is a way to take the whole line out. I don't know what it is. Okay, so here's 3 commands that we've got to run to finish the process. 1, we move that bash file script that we just created into etc initd. This is where programs that we're going to run every time from boot up go. Next, we're going to make it executable. Change mod to X, that program in initd. And then this is the cool one. This says, take that initial file that holds a list of programs that run every time we boot up and add this to the list. So this is what sudo update-rc.d means. It says add update, you can see that, the listen for shutdown sh program, and it assumes that it's going to find it in etc initd. If it's not going to, then you would put a full path here. And then this defaults, there are customized settings that you can do with these programs that auto start. So if you are old enough, cancel, Control X, no, there we go. If you're old enough to remember Microsoft DOS back in the day, there used to be this program called autoexec.bat. And it was used to set up environmental variables, send messages every time you booted the computer, and you could list programs in there that you want to run. I want to run a memory manager. I want to start my word processor every time this thing boots up and whatever. Well, that's what this rc.local file is. It's just a file that runs every time you boot up, and it has lists of things that you want to do during the boot up process that aren't already automatically done by Linux.
Cool.
Some cool stuff. So that's everything. The quick version, the fix for Raspberry Pi 4, and how what the quick version did. You can dive through this more if you choose. If you're a Python programmer, you'll understand some more of it than I do. If you're a Bash programmer, I'm a basic Bash programmer. I don't understand everything that happens in there. So I like this one. This is just follow along and you do it. So let me add one little cool concept here. This is my saleable item. If you're a Python programmer, remember that we were told by Dr. Evan Upton when he visited us one time for a couple hours to do the show that 40% of Raspberry Pis are sold into industrial applications. They're either used in industry, like for signage around the office, to run things in the office, or they actually build them into their products. And another neat little factoid is of those 40% and of the other 60%, a huge percentage, the number one most common project is signage of some kind. It may be a retail sign running an LED screen. It may be a web server that updates, the signs that you see when you go into a restaurant that's got pictures of menu items and menu costs and things like that. Can't tell you how many of those are Raspberry Pis. So I envisioned that somebody could take this and have a one button call that instead of calling shutdown would launch a web browser with a particular URL. Every time I press this button, the web browser launches and it navigates to this page. Hey, well, if that works, how about two buttons? You press button number one and it takes you to URL place number one. So by providing buttons instead of a keyboard, we can put this in a fairly sealed container with little plexiglass bubbles on it so nobody can screw anything up. You get 10 buttons, you can get 28 buttons across there. And every time you press a button, it takes you to a different pre-programmed URL. And then my idea would to further refine it that says, if X amount of time goes by where there's no button push, then the browser cycles through the 28 pages or however many you have. So it's cool for hanging up on a wall. So that's a project that I'm going to challenge you guys. You have all the code that you need here. You have all the information that you need. You know how to wire up a button. I just got to wire more buttons and use different GPIO pins. And I would like to see some buddies as a team, and I'll help take this off as a project. There is built into Python in Raspberry Pi OS a command, one word, web browser. you can just type in into a Python script, or you can say Python and on a command line, Python space web browser space, and then the name of the URL that you want to go to, and it will launch your browser and auto navigate to that URL. So the command is already there to do it. All we've got to do is add different URLs, and
I like it.
$1 idea.
I like it.
All right, I'm done with my notes. Let's go back, answer questions, and kill 15 minutes at the end.
All right. So not a lot of questions.
They were so taken with this, huh?
Pretty much, yeah.
Or they all got bored and left.
No, nobody left, actually. At 3:33, Dr. Quinn asked you, when Dr. Upton and Associates thought of the Raspberry Pi, did they have any thoughts or connection to the 3.14159.265.359?
Okay, so somebody asked him that. In fact, people ask him that one all the time. Where does the name come from? And something is happening here, and I don't know what it is. Can you hear me, Scott?
I can hear you just fine.
Something weird has happened, but no, all right, good enough. So Dr. Upton is asked that question all the time, and he says there is a long tradition going back to the 70s or so of naming computers after fruit. And this is not the first pie one that was developed. There was orange pie wasn't come first. Banana pie. Banana pie was out there, I believe, before this one. And there's right now there are a pile of pie programs out there. And so the raspberry thing came out, and there was already pies. And so they just came up with a natural mesh that says, here comes fruits, here comes bananas, and here comes oranges, and apple pie, of course. Apple having been one of the first fruit computers that existed. And why they chose pie instead of baking, well, there were others who used pies, so he kind of followed suit.
Cool.
Yeah, moving on here. I'm almost caught up with you. I'm at 3:32. There's Dr. Quinn's question. I won't quit early. I'll keep talking to an empty room, but now's a good time to start filling in the chat with any kind of question, pie or otherwise. What's your preferred text editor? That's interesting. So my preferred text editor is Nano. I'm not good at it. I'm good enough. I learn more about it all the time. I would not use VI to save my life. I had to use it in college briefly in a Fortran class. And, there are VI aficionados, there are lovers. Michael Smyer, our super genius in-house, and he's probably watching right now, loves VI. There's a cross between VI and the various simpler editors called Vim, V-I-M, right. Which is, I kind of like that. I just started playing with it in the last week or so. It works a lot like VI. You have to go into command mode, insert mode, fix mode, and then you go back into text and input mode. And right. That's an okay. It's a very powerful thing. But, for simple scripts that I do, Nano. Historically, in recent years, LeafPad has been very popular. Yeah, everybody despises VI, including Scott. All right, I'm using Nano. I had to refresh my screen because everything was blurry. Yeah, I don't have my glasses on. Sorry about that, Kevin. It would be much clearer if I wore my glasses.
Dave.
I love that line.
It's a great line.
Nano.
Kevin has another question at 3:45. Have you guys messed with any portable Pi power supply? Wow. Yeah,
let me hit that one. I want to go farther back. Connor said something at 3:39. Java is greater than Python. Is that just an opinion that says I like Java better than Python? Okay, do this with Java. No, I haven't messed with it. Here's the funky thing. When you fully load up a Pi, especially a Pi 4, it can drag as much as 3 amps. Now, it's not usually going to do that. It's usually going to drag between 1 and 2. But you need either a 5-volt battery that's got enough life to make the runtime on your Raspberry Pi worthwhile. There's not a ton of those. There's some of those, external batteries for phones that are 64,000 milliwatt hours, which is 64 amp hours in yoga. But if you want to mess with those, you sometimes have to mess with a voltage converter. And no, I haven't messed with it. I've never felt the need for anything that portable. If I want to put it in my car, I'll use a 12 volt to 5 volt adapter and run it from that. But I've never taken it out in the field. When you and I first started talking, you were envisioning this as being maybe some kind of portable Kali device. Again, you're going to need a big battery. You're going to need a lot of stuff to support that. And at that point, you have a computer with all that weight. Use a computer or do what everybody does, and that's plug it into the wall, just like they would a computer when they're doing pen testing and other things. But no, can't say I purposely did. All right, I see what's messing me up here. I can fix this. And I'm fixing it. I've got the YouTube feed going up, and it's not its usual 4-second delay. It's a very long delay. So
okay.
You're saying something, and I'm seeing your head move 35 seconds later.
I had to refresh my screen, like actually change the whole.
Yeah.
Screen just to get the feed
We're
to go.
getting too close to the end. I would do that, but we're close enough to the end. I'm not going to bother.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I'm not far from the end here. Cool, Connor. Yeah, and there's somebody who on the Discord channel. Did you put the Discord invite?
I have not. I will do that right now.
Thanks. So Jose Braden has set up this Discord channel for everybody who hangs out with the Mike AMAs and with Scott's AMAs and mine. Hang out there when we're not hanging out here. There's some good stuff. And I got some feedback over there, at least one person who is a Python programmer. And I didn't tell him what the project was. I said I'd tell him after this. But if you want to get involved, we're going to do that. Don't forget to hang a sign. No pranksters. Okay, I got up to the Kevin question. I'm waiting for my Pi to finish the updates. Yeah. You know what? If you stop using Wi-Fi 802.11b, it's going to be. Okay, fuzzy screams that happen for a long time. That's YouTube, and it's part of their CDN problem. VI, that stands for virtual instrument in my mind. Okay, I never knew what it stood for. Virtually impossible to use editor.
And Vim, I think, is actually like VI improved.
That sounds good.
Something like that.
Yeah, I like that. I bought a bunch of Samsung batteries where you can make your own rechargeable, but decided I didn't want to blow anything up. I'm with you.
Right?
I got background in electronics. I don't screw with batteries much.
You should puncture them.
And then put them in an open fire. Put them on the stovetop burner.
Because what could
browser Python command for each switch is the URL displayed on the monitor, or does that require an additional command? Additional command per URL. To my understanding, I worked with Michael Smyer and our other brain trust programmer a little bit yesterday to get the beginnings of a handle on this. Can it hurt if a power supply is more than the Pi is rated for? Not voltage. That will hurt it. So the range for Pi power is 4.75 volts to 5.25. Don't go outside that range. Current or wattage is completely fine. Remember, we get this question in A+ all the time. Power supplies are rated to provide up to a certain amount of wattage. So let's say you got a PC that wants 300 watts to run. Well, that means you need at least a 300 watt power supply. But if you get a 400 or a 500 or an 800 or 1,000, that's just more water in the bucket that if ever got needed that it would provide. And it's the same thing then with, I moved all the power supplies over there. Raspberry Pi power supplies. You know, when you buy power supplies for a phone, they come in 2.1 amp and 2.4 amps these days. And by the way, don't use those chargers. They're not well regulated for voltage. But you're looking for that amperage rating. And remember, volts times amps is watts. So you need about 15 watts to fully run a Pi 4. If you can get a 5 volt wall wart that provides 25 watts, it's okay. The Pi says, I only need 15. You just hang on to that other 10.
Right. Yeah, as Elbow put it, I've heard someone describe it perfectly. Power supply units don't give power, components draw power.
That is exactly correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so Scott's posted at 3:51 the invite to the Discord server we've been hanging out on, discord.gg, whack, some upper and lowercase stuff. Join us there. I usually head there right after this. After I change shirts and a couple other goodies. Scott joins usually after he takes the dog for a walk and has his Friday, where the heck is my Sims meeting?
right after this. So
yeah, what are we on here? We have 5 more minutes. Cool. We're gonna get to everything.
sure.
So I see the pi sugar being more useful for pi 0 to collect handshakes, ethically, of course. You know, I understand every one of those words, Kevin, but never put together in the order that you have put them. I do not understand what you said there. Could there be any particular reason for my USB SSD boot to take 5 minutes on the Pi other than maybe a connection issue? Yeah, there's a million reasons. The USB SSD adapter you're using could be an issue, could be drivers for that thing. What have I seen about slow boot on the forums? Oh, it's not auto mounting, or it's not auto mounting until well into the boot process. And once the boot process is done, then it auto mounts, and then it goes, or the pre-boot process. The fix for that is a utility called FS Tab. I've actually started writing a presentation on FS Tab, but it's a way that says, I want to mount this device. I will identify it by its UUID. Here's where I'm going to mount it. Here's some other mount parameters, and here's when I want to mount it. So that it may be an order mount issue.
Cool.
I would head over to the Raspberry Pi forum and throw that question into either troubleshooting or beginners forum. It's advanced or beginners. One more time, advanced or troubleshooting. Okay, Tolowitz, so your Pi is hardwired to Ethernet. So you don't want to use the 10 megabit Ethernet, that old 10 megabit switch that you kept from 1984, just not doing it anymore.
And that 10 megabit hub.
Right. Okay, Scott reminds us, we got deals, 50% off of our total tester, some of the bundle type products, code 101920 at checkout, good for a couple more days. Connor Wellman, what would be a good online resource to learn Python commands needed to make a project that you're talking about? You know, I have an answer to that. Hey, look at it. There it is. Okay, we'll share. This is the ones that I started working on this week to do a little bit of pre-learning. Share. Click that, and now we're shared. Okay, so there's 2 of them here. This is online Python lessons that focus on the pages that focus on the web browser command information. So of course, python.org, they are the people who make and support and maintain Python. Python, by the way, upgraded 2 weeks ago, a week ago. There's a new version out there. So docs.python.org, WAC 3.8, WAC library, WAC web browser. And then once you're in there, then you can go to all the main pages and so forth. And then this is another third-party reference, factorpad.com, WAC tech, WAC Python, WAC reference. So again, you don't have this written down right now. You didn't memorize it. It'll be in the archive in a couple of minutes when we're done here. Yeah, good question, because I was ready for it.
Cool.
Hub. All right, well, we're caught up on questions. We got about 1 minute to go. Best timing day almost ever. Mike will be back regular time, Monday, 2 o'clock. There'll be all new specials, and with his tooth back in shape, I think he's probably going to pick back up. He said Monday or Wednesday he was going to start talking about PowerShell again, and I don't know if he's got anything left on Microsoft Server, but some good stuff coming up there. I got a good project coming up the weekend. Next week, we're going to do another LED lab, but unlike the lab that we did a couple of weeks ago, where we used a web page to press a button to turn an LED on or off, we're going to use it as a status button. It's going to hook it up to the GPIO pins. And when the Pi is powered on and running, the LED will be on. And when it's powered off, the LED will be off. So that's not the case right now. If you power off your system right now with this button, it's still plugged in and getting wall power from the power supply. So the power connection light is on. So I don't know that the Pi is running or not unless I stare at it for a while and look for the green flash. So we're going to add an LED that we can look at our Pi from a distance and say, oh, that LED is not on. It's not powered on.
Cool. Okay.
Simple project.
Sounds like a useful project.
Yeah. All right. Anything you got? Anything cool going on for the weekend, Scott?
Lots of music, but other than that.
Okay, good. Well, everybody have a safe and wonderful weekend. Stay safe, wear your mask or don't wear your mask, vote. There you go. That's the one thing I want you to do. Whatever party you fall through to. In the meantime, comes the big wave.
Here we go.
Goodbye.
The big wave followed by the blank stare.
Yeah, right. And now with this long delay, I guess you can call when we're
okay.
out because I don't